before I jump into this topic, I just wanted to give you a quick context on why I selected this topic and why is this topic maybe going to be relevant to you from understanding what all is a part of product management in today's world. So typically, I think when people think about product managers or they think of the product management domain itself, right? We usually think of, it's going to be something to do with technology. It's going to be something to do with maybe understanding your users and building something that the are going to like. It may have some flavor of business, design, marketing, sales, and those are all valid assumptions because a lot of it goes, in these functions that I just mentioned, but right. But then we also need to think of one important function or an important person in this whole scheme of things, right? Is the user. And what I want to achieve or what I want to give you as a food for thought is that how can we impact or how can we use gamification in achieving our product outcomes? So, but before I get into it, I just want to quickly talk about, give a quick introduction about myself. I graduated from the University of Missouri, St. Louis, a long time ago in information systems. I have worked for companies like Pfizer, RateGain, Times Internet, and then Salesforce. I've largely been a SaaS product manager. I have my career for some reason has, and I chose it to be like that. I've never been into the same domain for, in any two companies. So I cannot say that, I'm a product manager specializing in fintech or health tech. I've just been a product manager in SaaS, and I think it's more of a career choice that I made. As far as my transition goes, I started out my career in sales. So before I finished my master's, I was working for a telecom company in the US in their sales team, in their B2B sales team. And once I finished my master's, I started out my career as a validation analyst. I forgot to mention the word analyst here, but when I was with Pfizer, I was working as a validation analyst, and it simply is a very glorified word for a QA person, a quality assurance person, because it comes from a very regulated market. So they are called validation analysts. And from there, I transitioned into a PM. So I just wanted to, quickly, briefly introduce myself and take my example of my transition from a salesperson to a PM. Now, coming to the topic, right? So the key takeaways for today's topic is that, like the topic mentions, right? It's all about understanding the impact of gamification for achieving product outcomes, or what is the impact that we can create on product outcomes. Now, for us to understand that, we need to first break down our whole, we need to break down some of these concepts and understand, one, what are product outcomes? So we'll first cover what are product outcomes. I will take an example of a company called Duolingo. It's a language learning app. And I'll walk you through, what are the product outcomes that they wanted to achieve. Then I'll switch gears and I will talk briefly about what is the purpose of gamification. And then I'm going to merge these two concepts of product outcomes and gamifications. And I will give you a case study of how Duolingo drives product outcomes through gamification. I know I'll be switching gears, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. But essentially, we're just going to be covering two topics: product outcomes, gamifications, and then I'm going to merge it through this case study that I have planned for this week's session. Now, let's first understand what are product outcomes, right? But even before we get into a product outcome, let's first understand what is outcomes and what are and why are outcomes different from an output. So when we talk about an outcome, right? Outcome is when a real business value is delivered that can be measured. It is nothing. It is not a motherly statement to say that, the sky is blue, the grass is green. It's actually a business value that you deliver, and you can measure that value that you're trying to deliver. That's an outcome. Outcomes are typically and are not equal to an output. Output just says that, okay, I'm going to be putting in this much of effort, and then therefore I will achieve an outcome. But outcome largely is a business value that you deliver. Now, when we take the word product outcomes, it essentially means when product teams place customers and users' needs in the middle of building products, right? And what does that mean? It simply means that if your customer is asking for a solution, then you are building that solution and providing that solution to your customer. I mean, if I talk to you in a very simple layman terms, right? If someone is telling you that I'm thirsty, you give them a glass of water. So when we talk about product outcomes, we are saying is that, I have done my research and I believe that my customers are asking for, uh, they are having a problem, and therefore I'm going to build a product, an digital product that's going to serve their need. And in this process of product building, the teams only work on those needs that will help them achieve this outcome, right? So now that is your theoretical, by the book definition of what is an outcome. And when we talk about product outcomes, what does that mean? Now, let's take an example of Duolingo. Now, for those who are not aware, but mostly for those who are not aware, I'll just like briefly tell you. So Duolingo is essentially an app that allows user to learn any language, right? So let's say if you want to, if you are a non-English speaking person, well, you can learn English. If you want to learn any other language, right? Hawaiian, Czech, Swahili, Hungarian, whatever language, right? So all those languages are on their platform or on their product. It's a Android and a iOS native app, and you can just download it and you can learn any language that you want to learn. Now, with context of Duolingo, Duolingo says on their, when you go to their homepage, right, on their website, they say that Duolingo is the free, fun, and effective way to learn a language, right? Now, let's break this statement down a little bit further so that that will help you, understand what product outcomes are. So the first thing they say that it's a free language learning platform. The second thing that they mention is effective learning. And the third thing they mention is fun, right? So they're saying that we are free, we are effective, and we are fun. Now, when we talk about fun, right, we are essentially saying that typically learning is quite boring. I've been bad in learning. If the people tell me that, you need to learn something, it just looks like an Herculean task to me that, okay, I'm going to sit down and I have to put in so many hours of effort to learn something. But this is what Duolingo comes out and says, that they're a free, fun, and effective way to learn any language. Now, when we talk in terms of product outcomes, right? So when we see this statement on their homepage, their product team in the back or behind the scenes is trying to build on these product outcomes or deliver on these product outcomes. Now, how do they deliver these product outcomes, right? So they say, okay, the first thing we talk about is it's going to be a free language learning app, which means that nowhere in that entire journey, they will ask you for money upfront. So they're not going to tell you that I have take a 3-day trial, and then you need to pay me X amount of money. They do not do that. Second, their product team understands that, like I mentioned, learning is not easy. Learning takes a lot of effort from a user who is their customer. So for the app to be effective, how do you measure that effectiveness, right? Which means that the person or the user has to actually learn something. Only then they can confidently say that, okay, we are being effective. And the third part is the fun part, right? That users should actually have fun while learning. So when you have a statement like this, and when you try to translate that into a product team's mindset, then these are the things that you come up with, right? So these are some of the product outcomes or the main product outcomes that they are focusing on. They're saying that we're going to be free, which means we're not going to ask for money upfront. We will make sure that we are effective, which means we will ensure that people actually end up learning something. And in this process of learning something, they are actually having fun, right? So this is what we will try to decipher today in the next 40-45 minutes. Now, let's switch gears. Now that we understand, for Duolingo, what was their statement, their product statement, and what their product teams are working for, let's understand what is gamification and what is the purpose of gamification. Now, gamification, again, is an art of deriving the engaging elements of a game and applying it to a non-gaming context, right? So imagine when you guys were young, or when anyone is young, right? You're playing games, you're competing with your friends, you're making levels up. Some games help you in, building these small online digital assets that you're proud of. You share it on Facebook, or any other social media platform, and you say, okay, I finished this level. I know people who are big into Candy Crush kind of games. You see them, highly engaged when they are playing that game. So essentially what you do is that you understand why people play games. You identify those elements, and then you incorporate those elements into your product building process. So when we have that kind of a thought process, what we are saying is that we have a human focused design as opposed to a functionally focused design, right? So human focused design, again, says that, okay, you have to put the customer right in the middle of all conversations. So there is one thing that we all know, that human beings love to play games. It's not the fact that people who want to learn like to play games, or people who want to order food on Zomato like to play games, or people who want to lose weight on Healthify like to play games. It simply means that human beings love to play games. So when human beings love to play games, the idea of gamification is you have to put humans right in the middle of that thought process and say, okay, it's a human focused design. And this entire design, it is optimized for human motivation in a system as opposed to efficiency. So the system talks about, how do I motivate the human being, or how do I motivate the human being rather than making everything efficient? Because the thought process is that if I am able to motivate the person enough, then I don't care if he's efficient or not. That motivation themselves, that the motivation is going to play the trick or be the magic for us. That I have motivated you enough, wherein now you will do what you're supposed to do and derive the benefit that you want to derive. Right. So that's the large purpose of gamification. Obviously, man, I can go about this topic alone for like hours, but because of the time constraint today, I just wanted to set a very high level context of, what is gamification. And I'm going to come to the fact that what are some of the pillars of gamification and why do we play games, right? So let's talk about these 5 things. Now, accomplishment is one. So when we talk about games, right, people play games because there are levels. There is a task in hand that needs to happen, or the game itself is going to give you a challenge that you have to solve for. So one of the things that people love playing games is that they get that sense of accomplishment. The second is that it gives the sense of creativity and feedback. So in a lot of games, you'll see the users end up creating something and then they get feedback on it. Again, it's a gaming element where I know in like some games, you get some coins and you start building something and then you trade it for some other value, you keep building on it. So that's the concept here, right? So your creativity gets to flow and you get feedback, and that is what humans like. Ownership is when users actually build something, so they have a higher sense of ownership. Social influence, like I mentioned, right? When users just want to shout out about their achievements, when they say, okay, I have accomplished 3 levels just in the last 24 hours, and they click on a button and they share this accomplishment on a social channel or any other, chat, messenger, whatever. So that's one reason why people love to play games. And then obviously there is the scarcity. uh, a lot of games create this scarcity where they say, okay, you've played enough today, and for you to continue, and you've accomplished everything today, but for you to continue, you need to do some in-app purchases, or your coins are finished in this game and therefore you cannot continue. So that excitement of scarcity, uh, when users finish something because it's against the time, or it's a scarce commodity, they like to play games. Obviously there are some more factors that go into it, but we'll just focus because again, time constraints, we're just going to focus on these 5 concepts of why human beings typically love to play games. Now let me come back to the sorry let me come back to Yeah, let me come back to Duolingo. Like we set the context that, Duolingo is a free language learning app. And they say that, we have to be effective. And the product team says that while it has to be effective, there has to be an element of fun for the users who are actually in the process of learning. So how do they accomplish that? How do you quantify being effective and fun? Right? Because that is one of the principles, or that is one of the underlying uh, requirements of defining product outcomes. You cannot just say that, I'm going to do this. That's not a product requirement. A product requirement has to be a business value with something that can be quantified. So when we break out effective and fun, which is a part of their product vision, what it can be broken down as to say that, okay, one, the ability to complete complete the learning of the language selected, right? So let's say if I'm coming to the platform, and as a user I say I want to learn English, then I should be able to, after a certain amount of time, say that, okay, now I am good at in English, either talking, learning, or just fluently speaking about it. The second is, when we talk about either effective or fun, think about it, that the amount of time the user spends on this digital product. So if I am coming back to you over and over again, and each time that I come back to you, I spend more time, which means that there is some value that I am achieving or I'm deriving, right? And if I continue to do that, then that's going to help me achieve the first one, which is my eventual goal of learning something. So essentially, points 2 and 3 link back to point number 1, that if you keep coming back to me, if you keep coming back to me repeatedly, if you do not stop coming to me, then you will achieve your larger objective in life, which is, for using the app, which is learning a language, right? And I'm just breaking this down in simple English. This has nothing to do with product management or domain. It's simple English, setting the context as a problem statement, saying that, okay, let's define effective and let's define fun. Now, when we talk in product terms, how would you define and measure fun? And this is coming back again to the concept of an outcome, right? So as a product team, I can say that, we want to increase the time spent on the app by 15% in the current quarter. Which is, if I was, as a user, if I come to the app and I spend 10 minutes, then I should be able to come and spend about 11 and a half minutes, right? And this is across all users. So you say my total time spent on the app, if it is uh, 1,000,000 minutes, it should increase by 15%. The second is that you can say that, uh, my retention rate should go up from 40% to 55%, which means that if out of 100 people, 40% of my users come back to me every month or every week, then in the subsequent time period, that number should go from 40 to 55%, right? Or what Duolingo said was that my next day retention should go up from 40 to 50%. Now, why is the third one such a bold statement? It's simply because Duolingo is taking a bold bet, in, if I would, that they're saying that if someone is coming to their app on day one and that number is sitting at 40%, the next day I want that number to move to a 55%. But if you look at it from a daily perspective, you're saying that over a period of time, they're going to increase the next day retention rate by about 10%, which I think is huge. So when we talk about product outcomes, these are the statements that make up that product outcome. And this is the process that typically companies would follow to say that, okay, I have a vision where I want to make learning effective. I want to make learning fun. I would measure that by saying, what is the engagement or what is the time that is being spent by my users? And why are my users keep coming back to me? So they need to keep coming back to me every day, every hour, every week, every month. So my retention is strong. And then from these numbers and this thought process, they come up with your product outcome, which is the metric or which is what they follow for which the teams work day in, day out, the product team, to get this number from a 40% to 50, whatever that increase is. It can be time spent or retention, whatever you decide. But that's how you go from your product vision to saying that, okay, this is the numbers that I want to achieve and I want to aspire to be at that number. Now, let's talk about how did Duolingo achieve this next day retention number. And what I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes is all about the gaming elements that they used, the product team used to both increase engagement, which eventually increased two elements. One is the effectiveness, and the second was the fun element, right? So when we look at Duolingo, right? Now, Duolingo has something called challenges. Challenges are nothing more than telling the user that the task that you have selected, they tell the user that task, we have broken that task into very small granular units, which are then converted into goals which they have to achieve. Say, for example, if someone wants to learn English, so they log into the app on day one, they select English, and after that they say, okay, the app itself says that we've created a sort of a lesson plan which goes for the next 60 days. And on day one, you're going to go through the basics of nouns, verbs, adjectives. So they break that entire process into smaller goals, day wise, and that becomes the lesson plan for the user. Now, how do they do that, right? They use two things. One, they use visual motivations for progress. So if you look at this screenshot, right, they have these progress bars, they have used iconography, they've used icons. So they are, and all of these elements, all of these UI elements that you see on your screen or this screenshot are all gaming elements, even from a UI perspective. It's not like a paragraph they could write in. They could have written this in a text format. But no, they have used the right visual motivations to depict where you are and where you want to be. The second, what they do is, and I think the company has been really in the middle of this kind of a meme fest where they are very, very famous for sending notifications. The amount of notifications that you can get from this app is just incredible, right? But they use that notifications to bring back users very frequently to the app. So that's the first thing that they did. They created these challenges. They broke those challenges down into simpler goals that are achievable on a daily basis by the customers or the users. And then they leveraged the notifications to ensure that people keep coming back to their app on a daily basis, right? The next gaming element that they used was streaks. Now, when we talk about streaks, right, people would generally think that, okay, streaks are good. But, and for those who are not familiar with streaks, but streaks are essentially like, consecutive days when you come to the app to finish this task. So the first thing that they did was they broke your overarching goal into smaller goals. And then they said, okay, we're going to use this element of streaks where we will, for every day that you come and you perform that task on the app, we're going to, give you that color code that you're on a 3-day streak or a 4-day streak or a 5-day streak. Now, how does these streaks help? Now, there has been research done where it's a proven methodology, right? Where humans, uh, they get incredibly satisfied when they see their streaks increase, or they get disheartened when the streak is about to end. And that's a proven human psychology user behavior, right? I know this app called Healthify Me, they do that. When you use their product and you log your daily meal intake, they'll start giving you streaks. In fact, I use Blue, which is a cab service, and when they send their notification, they mention that we are on a 7-day streak where the driver has arrived your destination to pick you up before time. So that before time thing is they position that as a streak. So so streaks is something that everyone is aware that streaks can be used as a gaming element to just say that, okay, you've come today and you have finished that task for today. So that's a second gaming element that they inbuilt or baked into the product. The third one that they did was bets, right? And when I mean bets, it actually means a bet. Like, how you do a gambling bet, it is exactly same, that the users could place a bet uh, in their in-app currency and double the money if you finish the streak, right? Now, how does this help? So essentially what they are telling you is, and this gaming element and how you build that into the product, right? That's kind of where the creativity of a product manager comes in. So you're saying that, okay, if I tell my user that if he can finish a very small task for the next 5 days, and he bets, let's say 10 rupees on it, right? That I bet 10 rupees that I will come and I will finish this task, this small task, which does not take me more than 15 minutes for the next 5 days. And if I do that, then I will get 30 rupees back. It's not that I'm going to get 10, I'm going to get a reward, which is the 30 rupees. So they built this bets feature, gamified it, and baked it into the product, and encouraged users to take on this bet. So typically what would happen, right? When you start learning something, now imagine how this journey uh, plays out with the customer itself. The customer downloads the app. The customer says, or the user says that I want to learn English. Well, very good. They break down that entire English. If you think about English, it's a huge, vast, diverse language, right? Each country has their own flavor of English, not to mention the words, right, and how they are spelled. But they break that entire journey down beautifully into small tasks, which the user thinks, oh, this is just 30 minutes a day. Wow, I can do this. Then they layer it up with something that they call streaks, which says that, okay, if you keep doing the task every day, you will get a reward. Again, a gaming element very nicely baked into the product. Then the third thing that they do is they say, okay, you can bet some in-app currency where you say that, okay, we will give you a larger reward if you continue with these streaks and you're able to achieve these streaks. And they just take this concept of daily challenge into and convert that into a monthly challenge, right? Now, why was the need for them to take a daily challenge and convert that into a monthly challenge? The need was that not everyone is competitive. There are some people or some users who are less competitive. They want to know, they want to say that, okay, I'm in the race, but uh, it's not about winning, but yet I want to be a winner at the end of this, right? And you'll always have someone like that, they want to keep their own pace. They want to finish it with at their own pace, but they still want to say that, okay, if I miss 2, 3 days, that's fine, but I will win the monthly race. So they converted this daily tasks and these daily challenges and just increase the timeline there to say that it's going to be a monthly challenge for you guys. Uh, the fifth element that they introduced, the fifth gaming element that they introduced was championships. Now, championships, like as the word is, they were actually designed for those competitive users, right? And it's a very, very typical hardcore gaming concept where you say that, you are active in this race. And you're active in this race because you have to win the race, which means there is also a leaderboard that comes into place. So users want to see that, they are topping the charts or the topping their leaderboards. Now, how Duolingo kind of played on this as well is that instead of having, and just simply because of the volume of users on the platform, what they did was that they played on this in two ways, right? So they said that, okay, when you are in a championship, obviously there would be points that you earn, which would move you up and down. But they did not restrict it to a single leaderboard, because typically what would happen is on a single leaderboard with that velocity, right? You're just moving on that single board. You'll probably may lose interest after about 10 days because you keep seeing the same data, or you keep seeing that same position for yourself. It may move by 5 points up and down, or maybe 10 points up and down, but largely it stays the same. And what happens is that people who are more competitive, the movement is more in for those people. And then someone who's like less subtle, not like completely non-competitive, but less subtle, their movements don't happen that much, right? So they broke down the leaderboard into multiple leagues. So typically on the app, what happens is people move bases the points, and then they move bases different league leaderboards. So they've designed it in a way where you're coming back to the app to check if you have moved within leagues basis the points that you have collected or not collected, right? If you don't collect, you move into a different league with lesser points, or if you collect more points and you move to a league which is better than yours and from a standing perspective. So that's how they handled for the championships. They did not have a single leaderboard. They had multiple leagues, enrolled users across leagues, and they kind of moved them across either leagues and on points. The next that they focused on, and like any game, right? There are lives. Any video game you play, there are lives. Well, in Duolingo also, they have something called lives. Now, how does lives work for them? So any user has a maximum of 5 lives. Any error that the user makes costs them 1 life. When they finish all their lives, right, they cannot study more. They need to either review their lessons, the previous lessons, so that they study better and they are able to clear, or they use gems, right? And people who, and at this point in time, right, where you are struggling to get to the next level, uh, this is when they ask for subscription for unlimited lives. So they make it highly relevant for people to say that, okay, you're trying hard, you want to get to the, you want to finish your learning, because you've gone through this entire journey, right? You're doing your tasks, you're doing your streaks, you're doing all of this effort. But if you pay upfront, then this entire concept of lives is going to go away, and then you're going to just go through the remaining gaming elements as is, so that you're able to achieve your goal faster, right? So that's how they are introducing lives, saying that, okay, uh, one, okay, if you finish your lives, which means you're making too many errors, you're making too many mistakes, which means you are not doing your homework correctly. If you're not doing your homework correctly, well, one, you need to go back and review your lessons, or you can use the gems, and once you buy the gems, you get your lives back. So again, making those transactions highly relevant to the user in the context that they are sitting in. The next gaming element that they use is something what they call as a treasure chest. Uh, Now, the idea for a treasure chest is essentially to say that, now think back about the product outcome, right? What is the product team trying to achieve? The product team is trying to say that, okay, you need to come back to me every day and spend more time with me. And if I'm able to do that, then my product team achieves their task, and my business will achieve their business task or business goal. So what does this treasure chest do? The treasure chest does what it is aimed or designed to do is to instill some kind of a habit or a discipline into the user. While motivation is a good factor for them to keep coming back, but they need to be disciplined on when they need to come back, right? Because everyone is very busy. In fact, Duolingo says that their biggest competitor is Instagram, and we'll get back. I'll get to that briefly towards the end of the session. But uh, they need, the idea for them is that they need to instill some level of discipline to say that, okay, you need to take out that 15 minutes, and they're trying to change the user behavior to say that, okay, I know that Aasheesh has logged in or come to my app at 9 a.m. in the last 7 days. And therefore, I feel that the best time for Aasheesh to come and interact with me and learn on my app is at 9 a.m. In the evenings, he comes at around 5:30 every day. Maybe those are the travel times for Aasheesh. I'm just guessing. So what they do is they assign times where the user has the ability to uh, earn more points, and they open these windows in the morning, they open these windows in the evening, and then they obviously randomly open these XP potion windows where they get a combo, and they specifically open the last window to see if there is any change in that. So let's say if Aasheesh has been coming every day at 9 a.m. and suddenly he does not come. So they open this random window during the day to see if he is now free at a different time, so that when he comes on that time, they know, okay, if he's come in at like 10:30, maybe his travel time has changed, maybe something in his daily routine has changed, where his time from learning has gone from 9 to 10:30. But the larger agenda again here is not the exact time, it's forming the habit that you need to come every day, 15 minutes, you pick the time, and we'll give you that bonus, right? uh, the next up is your legendary status. Now, legendary status level in gamification is that that personal satisfaction. It simply says that you are at that level where you are the legend. It's a positive reinforcement. And how do they do this positive reinforcement? Is that each lesson that they have has 5 levels of difficulty, right? And if you finish the level fives with only 3 errors, they'll give you the status. So, long story short, all they're saying is that if you, the most difficult level within that course card If you're able to finish it with least number of errors, you are a legend. So again, it's telling the user that, because you've done this or you've accomplished this, you're the best. And it's as simple as that. So, and like I was mentioning to you earlier, right? For Duolingo, they have used these 5. Let me go back. So they've used these 6, sorry, not 5, but 6 or 7 of these gaming elements. One is obviously the challenge, where they break down the journey. Second is your streaks, where they prod you to come every day and finish that task that is assigned to you. They allow you to make bets with yourself, in a sense, to say that, okay, if you're able to achieve or if you're able to win this bet, right, of regular streaks, then we'll give you a reward. They convert that into a monthly time horizon, just for those people who are not very, very, very competitive in their nature. They have championships where they say, okay, I know you want to be in the race, and I know you want to win the race, and I'll make it interesting for you. I'll have multiple smaller leagues, and then I'll mix it up with the points so that there is some action happening every time. So your level of competitiveness and your expectation, goes hand in hand. We talk about lives in any game. Lives are there, but the idea is that, if you make too many errors, which means that you've not done your homework, which costs you a life. And if you don't have lives, then you better go back and revise what you've missed out so that you can continue with your learning journey. And then obviously the treasure chest, where they're trying to instill a habit of coming back and making sure that, you spend that 15 minutes every day in the morning and evening to learn what you started out to learn. And lastly, obviously, is your legendary status, where they say, okay, you've achieved the most advanced level with the least possible errors, and therefore you're the best. So you're a legend. So yeah, so these are some of the elements, and I think the product leader, who's also happens to be the CEO of the company, has very openly said that, for them, Instagram is one of their biggest competitors, in the sense that people would spend 30 minutes on Instagram doing doom scrolling. And after those 30 minutes, they kind of feel bad about it because they have not achieved something. So Duolingo actually proudly says that, if users come to our platform, they spend these 15-minute time slots twice a day. At least we are able to, at least they go back with the feeling of, at least they have achieved something. So it's, and as per them, and he's said this publicly, that for them, achieving this product outcome through gamification, they are almost at 80% engagement rate, as that of in Instagram. So let's say people, whatever the engagement rate of Instagram is, and I think it would be through the roof, but they are almost 80% there from a learning perspective, which I think is quite an achievement, right? Now, the key takeaway here is, like, when you think about this, when you think about your product outcomes, when you think about your gamification, I think the food for thought for every one of you is that product management today is not just about technology, business, writing requirements, doing QA, being a product owner, being in a particular designation at a company, right? It's actually solving problems, and it's actually using human psychology, user behavior, to design products that would actually move the needle for the company, right? So just to food for thought, I thought I'll take these 15 minutes to share that with you. And yeah, so Duolingo is in India now. They believe they have launched Hindi as well on their platform. But yeah, that's all I had for today.